Hey guys, this is OG from Crypto Nights back with another cryptocurrency video. Bitcoin is breaking out on the short term, and in this video, I'll analyze whether or not this can continue and where we could potentially look for trade entries. If you appreciate videos like this, please do give this video a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe and click the bell notification so that you can get these videos in real time. This is really important because sometimes, actually a lot of times, these trade setups occur or break out within hours or even sometimes within the hour of me publishing these videos. And so if you are late to watch these videos, the opportunities might have already passed. In fact, actually during yesterday's video, as I was recording, we had a trade entry. And so that's why it's super important to subscribe and click the bell notification so that you can receive alerts in real time. With that said, let's jump right in. So yesterday, I was mentioning that there was a potential bottom forming here. It didn't break out exactly the way I thought it would. So I was looking at it as a potential double bottom here, right, with the neckline at this level. And it did break here, but I was also saying that, in order for me to take a larger position, I wanted to see price get above the 200 MAs, right, because this was serving as resistance. And so while we did break up above the neckline of this W pattern, we ran right into the 200 MAs as resistance. So I was waiting for a break above. So we actually got that here, right? So it took a little bit longer than I would have liked, and a little bit messier than what I was expecting. But nevertheless, it did break out above this neckline and then got above the 200 MAs. And since then, price has rallied quite nicely, right? So if we take a measurement like this, up around 3.5%, right? So now the question is, what are we looking for next? So the most immediate thing that you see is after this leg up, we are in consolidation. This horizontal consolidation here, right? Where, if we break above this level, right, let's call it 34.7. If we close above this with strong volume, we're likely to see a continuation. If we were to close below this consolidation region, let's say below 34.4K, then we're likely to see price come back down. So let's analyze both scenarios and see what we have. First, let's look at it if we were to come down. So if we break down here, right, then one area that is a potential place for a trade would be the retest of the 200 MAs as now potential support, right? So whereas this was resistance here, we can look for the opposite. So if price comes down and does something like this, then we will be looking for a potential long around this region. Upon this, rejection here, and upon seeing strong volume and candlestick confirmation, we could look for a long for another leg up. On the other hand, let's get rid of this. If we were to see price break up, right, break above this level, then the most immediate level that we want to be looking out for will be this resistance trend line at around 35.2, right? So this could be an area that will give us some trouble. Of course, if we break above this, then we'll go much higher. And I'll zoom out so that you can see where that is coming from. Let's look at the 1 hour. Actually, let's zoom out even more. Let's look at the 4 hour. Move this down. So this is where that line is coming from, right? So if we draw a line from this high to this high, and then a line from this low to this low, we have some sort of triangle, right? There's some sort of consolidation that is getting tighter and tighter, right? So then that's where this line is where I was showing you on the 15-minute. This could potentially be an area of resistance, right? So we could see price come up here and then get rejected, come down here, bounce around before eventually breaking out to the upside or the downside, right? Of course, it can come up here and then break, and we continue much higher. So in either case, right, we need to be aware of the levels. So zooming back in to the 15-minute, and one of the reasons why I'm looking at the 15-minute time frame more recently compared to before is because, well, let's put it this way, it's because I'm kind of expecting, potentially large moves that are coming. But large moves, right, always start with smaller moves, and that's why I'm looking at the 15-minute more in order to get an earlier sign of what might be potentially coming for some of the larger moves, right? And also in order to get some entry in preparation for a larger move, right? In that makes sense. So I'm willing to be wrong on a lower time frame in order to catch a larger move very early on, right? If that makes sense. And it seems like price is trying to retest, get above this resistance as I'm recording. So again, getting back to the idea of the importance of subscribing and enabling the bell notification, because this trade could literally happen within a few minutes of me uploading this video. So in that case, let me actually speed up a little bit, because otherwise, it might be too late for you guys to enter by the time I upload this. Now, switching over to Ethereum, we're also seeing that it broke out, right? It actually had a cleaner breakout than compared to Bitcoin, right? We had this W, very clean breakout here, and this went up, 6-7% so far. And let me move this up a little bit. So get rid of this, and it's looking quite nice, right? So again, we will be looking for a potential long if price comes back to retest the 200 MAs. Now on the upside, we are coming into resistance here, right? This was this prior high, right, around 22.90. So about a 2%, 2.5% move to the upside. So I'll be monitoring this very closely, right? This area, if we break above and then retest this as support, then we could look for a potential long. But if we get rejected here, then maybe we might see a double top, or even potentially, potentially a double top or a false breakout. In which case we will look for a potential short. But that's remains to be seen. We will be waiting for price action at that level before we decide what we want to do. Now, looking at ETH Bitcoin, moved on. Let's look at the 1 hour. So in the past few days, actually, I've been tracking this, right? So for those of you who have been following, just a quick recap. The initial move was this W pattern right here, this double bottom. So there was a long trade here, right, when we broke out. So moved up around 12%, and then at this point in time, I share with you guys that this was in consolidation, right, in horizontal consolidation, similar to what Bitcoin price is doing right now, right, this horizontal consolidation. And I mentioned that if price broke above, we're likely to see another leg up. So we actually, in fact, that's exactly what happened. And then yesterday, when price was coming back down, I mentioned there were two levels I was looking for a potential bounce, right? One was this area, right, as potential resistance flipping to support. And then if we were to break this level, then the 200 MAs down here as potential bounce. Look, from what we've seen so far, it looks like this level is holding, and this is where we have bounced up from. So since coming back to this zone, we have rallied about 4.5%, right? So, and of course, the next thing that we want to look for is for a higher high to break above this level, right? Break above the 0.0655. Right, so this is leg up, consolidation, leg up, retracement, and then leg up. So we want to see this create a higher high, right? Otherwise, we risk this bullish momentum potentially, stalling out for a little bit. So we want to see a higher high here. Now, the last thing I want to update you guys on is on Chainlink. Again, whether you follow me on TradingView or on Discord or on YouTube, you would have known about this, right? So yesterday I was saying that we are in this channel for Chainlink, right? This resistance on the upside, this support on the downside, and when we came back here to test this support, I said we're likely to bounce here, right? Actually, this is where exactly what I sent the signal. This, right, on this candle. So, and price has rallied, let's see, 6% since then, right? So, and let's throw this in here. And we broke above and we're so far broken above the 200 MAs as well. So now what we needed to see is for the price to hold above this, right? And if price can hold above this, and if Bitcoin, doesn't get crushed, then there's a high likelihood that we will continue to rally and potentially retest the resistance up here, right, which is around $21. Right? So that's what I'm looking for LinkedIn. Sorry, Chainlink, not LinkedIn. So that's it for the technical part of the video. Let me share some news stories. I asked you guys in Discord whether or not you guys wanted me to share some news in addition to technical analysis, and some of you mentioned that it would be good for me to at least do a quick summary of some of the important news. So this is the first video in which I'll do that. I'll see how it works out, and I'll adjust future videos based on how this goes. So the first thing is this, right? The USDC on TRON, the volume of it is increasing a lot, and this is to me this is good news, right? So one of the reasons why this I think is happening is because the fees, right? Again, gas fees are much lower on TRON. So, for example, for myself, when I'm transferring even USDT before, I would prefer to transfer it on the TRON blockchain versus as an ERC20, right? The fees are just much lower, right? So I think as an example, I think the fee was maybe $10 or $20 for if I used ERC20, and it was like $1 if I used TRON, right? So it's good that in addition to USDT, now USDC is also now on TRON. So the benefits are, one, transferring USDC is so much cheaper, and then two, I think this should allow a little bit more decentralization in terms of stable coins, right? We don't want all the risk or the exposure to be on USDT, right, which has been dominant because it was the first mover in this space. But as an industry that is decentralized, right, it's about this decentralization. It is quite risky for a critical piece of that infrastructure, namely the stable coins, to be dominated, right, by one player, right? Especially if that player has the risk of as much controversy as USDT has had, right? Let's put it that way. Not trying to bash USDT, it's very, very useful, but again, we don't want a critical piece of the blockchain, right, industry, of the crypto markets to depend on how well one player does, right? So I think for me this is good news. I want other players like USDC, and BUSD, etc., to spread out that risk so that there are more stable coins that have strong volume. So in the event that something that a black swan event does happen, right? Let's say USDT completely collapses, we'll be okay, right? Because currently, if USDT collapses, chances are the overall market will collapse, and that's not what positions that we want to be in, right? We don't want our portfolios, right, or the industry to be dependent on one player and have our fate be tied so closely to that one player. So for me, that's the significance, right? So what you think about TRON aside, I think this is good news for the a positive development for the overall industry. Now let's switch gears a little bit and look at miners news, right? So this is nothing new, but just want to do a quick recap and a quick analysis of this, right? So it's not news that Bitcoin mining has been or is being cracked down in China, right? And so a lot of these miners are now moving elsewhere. So I think some of the news coverage was around some of the miners moving to the States, right? So that airlifting mining equipment. Some miners are just selling off their equipment very cheaply. So this is a benefit for some of the other miners, and still others. But a lot of the players are actually just moving to places that are closer. Right? It makes sense. It's easier. It's faster, right? Because every day that your mining equipment isn't mining, it's lost revenue, right? So that's why a lot of these miners are actually moving to Kazakhstan, right, Russia. So essentially, countries that are bordering China. So And then the second piece I want to share along those lines is this. Let's see. So, right. So we're seeing Kazakhstan, Russia, right? So, and let's see. And this obviously has a direct effect, right, on their profit, right? So this is just an estimation of how much money that has been lost, a lot of money, right? So, and that money, in a way, right, is being made by the other existing miners, right? So because as as these China miners are leaving, then the difficulty, right, is lowered, and so existing mining power can, in essence, mine more Bitcoin with the same hash power that they had before, right? So essentially, it's almost like a transfer of wealth from the China-based miners to the non-China-based miners, at least in this time period. And so another direct impact of this, obviously, with these miners going offline, is the fact that the hash rate and the difficulty, right, is going down significantly. So we see this, right, this huge drop. And but I think this should be temporary, right? Because these China miners are relocating. So as that happens, the mining power will come back up. But even if that doesn't happen, or in addition to that, because the difficulty is lowered, the profitability, right, of miners are still running are higher, and therefore it will attract others to come in. So even if these China miners, right, doesn't come back, there'll be other miners that will enter in order to make that profit, right? So that's the beauty of Bitcoin, right? The incentives are designed in a way that it auto adjusts. So, and then lastly, one thing I want to discuss is the Grayscale unlock of GBTC. To be honest, I am kind of on the fence about this one. But the reason why I want to bring this up is to bring up both sides of the story, just so that you guys are aware of both sides and can at least form an opinion for yourself, right? So let's start out with the main narrative, the main narrative, which is that as GBTC gets unlocked this month, then there will be huge selling pressure, and therefore Bitcoin's price will drop, right? So that's been the main narrative that's been pushed around initially, right? And so I'm sure some of you guys have heard about this as well and are quite concerned about this unlock. Now, there's this other alternative narrative, right, that I want to bring attention to you guys, which is that actually maybe that might not be the case, right? And why is that? The reason is this. So this is a long article, but I think it's this here. This for me summarizes it a lot better than get rid of this here. So in summary, right? So as these institutions as they buy GBTC, they are locking up. A lot of times they're doing it with borrowed Bitcoin or borrowed cash, right? And so once these shares are unlocked, they have the choice to sell it or not, right? So they could decide, they don't want to sell it at a loss. But if they do decide to sell it, then they are selling it to retail, and when they get back, it's cash, right? So that's important. So as they're selling, so one, right, there might not be that much selling, right? That's point number one, because the premium, of GBTC over Bitcoin has essentially completely collapsed in the past half year. So it might not be a good time for them to sell. So that's one. So the sell pressure might not be as big as people are expecting. But point number two is, as they sell these shares for cash, some, or at least some of them, will likely use this cash to buy back Bitcoin, right? Because one, either because they have borrowed Bitcoin, so now they need to repay it, right, in Bitcoin, or if they want exposure to Bitcoin, right now that they're back in cash, they would redeploy that cash and buy Bitcoin so that they have the same sort of Bitcoin exposure that they want. So just want to bring this up, right? This Grayscale unlock, it might not be as black and white or as deterministic as we might have been led to believe with the initial narrative that the unlocking will be huge negative on the price. It could still be. I'm not saying it won't, and I'm not saying that it will be a non-factor. I'm also not saying that it will lead to a rise, but all I'm saying is that there's this issue might be more nuanced than we initially thought, right? So in fact, there might the net effect might be zero, or it might even be positive, right? It could still be negative, but that's the beauty of this, is that it's instead of being a for sure negative thing, now it's actually what, you might not be so sure about that, right? So just want to bring this up as well. And then lastly, I found this actually interesting, which is that a new report, right, actually has the U.S. as the #1 crypto-ready country. So I think a lot of times, a lot of people are saying that the U.S. is behind, right? For example, China when it comes to a central bank digital currency, or we are complaining that there are Bitcoin ETFs right, in Canada, and we don't have one in the States, or that in general we just feel that the U.S. is very hawkish, right? And against crypto, against Bitcoin, there's a lot of FUD. There's a lot of tough regulation, etc. But in fact, this has been, the U.S. is actually in a lot of fronts still leading the world, right, in terms of making sure that crypto, blockchain as an innovation of future innovation will thrive in the States. So I just found this interesting, right? So for people who are always thinking that the U.S. is behind, the U.S. is not a good place for crypto, not a good place for blockchain. Actually, in reality, right, it's actually quite friendly. And for me, all the regulation that's being put up, to me, that's actually long-term bullish, right? Because one, it suggests that they are not looking to ban it. Because if you're looking to ban something, you're not going to spend all this time putting up regulations and making sure that everything can run in a compliant manner, right? You'll just ban it, right? Why bother spending all this time? Secondly, the fact that it's being more regulated would allow more institutions, more retail investors, just overall more people to have confidence, right, in this market as well. And then lastly, clear regulation actually does foster innovation, right? Because a lot of times when companies or people, when they don't know what is allowed and what's not allowed, they prefer to wait and see. But if once guidelines are clear, right, even if there's a lot of if there's a lot of regulation, if it's clear where the line is drawn, where things are, where something is legal or illegal, once that's clear cut, actually a lot of innovation can happen. So just want to share these stories today. And if you guys like me sharing and these sort of news videos outside of just technical analysis and hearing my thoughts on what what these developments mean, please do click the like button and subscribe. Thank you guys, and see you in the next